Breaking news from the NFL, the Browns naming Dillon Gabriel their #2 quarterback behind Joe Flacco. That means Shedeur Sanders, who was drafted 2 rounds after Gabriel, is going to be the 3rd string quarterback. Cleveland traded Kenny Pickett to the Raiders on Monday, and Deshaun Watson has been put on the reserve PUP list. He's expected to miss most, if not all, of the season with a torn Achilles. We have our lead NFL insider Jonathan Jones with us, along with former NFL GM Ran Carthan. JJ, how much of this decision was based on where Gabriel was drafted, ahead of Sanders by a few rounds, and as pertains to also their actual performance on the practice field and in games this preseason?
I think that Dillon Gabriel's performance on the practice field and in games confirmed the priors for the Cleveland Browns. They valued Dillon Gabriel as a better quarterback prospect than Shedeur Sanders, as evidenced by drafting one in the 3rd round and one in the 5th round. But they still liked Shedeur Sanders, as evidenced by doing the very rare thing and drafting a quarterback 2 rounds after already taking a quarterback when they already had a couple on the roster, right? And Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett. So they liked both, but Dillon Gabriel, in the Cleveland Browns' estimation, performed better over these last few months. And so if football is a meritocracy, the better quarterback winds up ahead. You know, Shedeur Sanders had a very nice showing against the Carolina Panthers in the first preseason game, did not play in the second one, and then really struggled in that 3rd preseason game, so much so that he was yanked before the 2-minute drill in what was sort of a punitive move because of all the negative plays that he accounted for. And so now Shedeur Sanders, we knew that he was going to be on the 53-man roster. Now he's a 3rd-string quarterback, and during the season, 3rd-string quarterbacks don't get that many reps out there on the field. You know where the reps they get? It's with the scout team. So here we are in late August. We're talking about Shedeur Sanders, and I want everyone to just say with a clear mind, say with open hearts, that it is okay that a 3rd-string quarterback is going to be on the scout team for the Cleveland Browns. That's what's going to happen, and it is not anything beyond what is normal in the NFL, where there's going to be a lot of wasted energy over this. And I want to be clear, because Rand, I see that smile on your face. You know that people are going to be like, how dare the Cleveland Browns put Shedeur Sanders on the scout team? They don't respect him when every 3rd-string quarterback in the NFL is running scout team across the league.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, this isn't surprising news per se. We talked about it before going into the last preseason game. However you saw the rotation go in that game was how they saw them on their depth chart. And so Flacco started. Everyone knew Flacco would be the starting quarterback going into the season, followed by Dillon Gabriel, then followed by Shedeur. And that's exactly how they rolled off with this announcement that this is what their depth chart is going to look like. So I feel like, going into the season, the decision came down to Coach Stefanski and his crew feeling like they could trust Dillon Gabriel more heading into a game if something were to happen to Joe Flacco. Again, just to quote the great Bill Parcells when he was a head coach, I reserve the right to change my mind. Just like these 53-man rosters that have taken shape, this is just preliminary. This doesn't mean this is how it's going to end. A coach has the right to change their mind as the season goes on. And to JJ's point, the 3rd-string quarterback, whether that's the 3rd-string quarterback on the active roster or the 3rd quarterback that's a practice squad spot, typically will do all the scout team reps. So if you're Shedeur Sanders, you couldn't ask for a better situation, because other than being a starter or being the backup, but as a scout team quarterback, you will now go against the starting defense every day. And I will always lend on my experience. I remember Fred Warner telling me after practice one time when the 49ers had a young quarterback and Brock Purdy carving up this first-team defense, he said, if this young man ever gets an opportunity to play in the game, he's going to carve people up. And so for Shedeur, if he's ever thrusted into the lineup, his only experience in the NFL offense will be going against starting defenses, and that's seeing a crazy Jim Schwartz-style defense. So whenever he gets the opportunity to play, he should be ready.
JJ, we don't know what the future holds as far as injuries go for quarterbacks, but at this point, given what we've seen from Shedeur, given what the Browns have told you, what are the chances we see him at all this season?
I mean, I think the chances are decent, right? I mean, you have one of the oldest players in the entire NFL in Joe Flacco as your week 1 starter. You have the third-round quarterback in Dillon Gabriel right behind him. Is Joe Flacco going to play an entire 17-game season, whether he's healthy or not? I don't know. If we see the Joe Flacco from last year, then he's going to be benched, right? The Joe Flacco with the Indianapolis Colts. If we see the Joe Flacco from December of 2 years ago with the Cleveland Browns, and boy, the Cleveland Browns might be going to the playoffs. I don't know how many people are actually thinking the Browns are going to the playoffs. You understand what I'm saying, though. So then next up is Dillon Gabriel. And look, no one is over here rooting for an injury, but we understand, and Chris, you allude to it, injuries, of course, are going to take place in this league. And so whether it's injury or bad play, that's going to help Shedeur Sanders move his way up the depth chart. Again, this isn't training camp anymore. There's not the preseason games anymore. The reps aren't necessarily there for Shedeur Sanders to go out there and win something over anyone else right now, so long as they can kind of hold their position. But if their position is impacted by poor play or injury, that will allow Shedeur Sanders to get that opportunity. And once he gets that foot in the door, it's all up to him at that point. But until that door can crack, right now the door is somewhat shut. And Rand talked about what he needs to be doing over there on the scout team. That's all he can do right now. You got to control the controllables. But when you get that opportunity, that's when you can show up and show out. So that's what Shedeur Sanders right now really and truly has to wait for.
Yeah, scout team reps, that's what he's going to be getting, according to both JJ and Rand. And Rand, you know all about that. I would just like to know, with Dillon Gabriel being the backup quarterback, and you compare his reps that he's going to get in practice to the reps that Shedeur Sanders will get with the scout team, will Gabriel have more of an advantage in development this season if all things remain equal here?
Oh, of course, because he's the backup. And so if there are, if the first team is if there's an 8-play series in practice, the ones will likely get 6 of those 8. And so Dillon will get the other 2, and he'll get some of the early scout team reps as well. So he'll have more of an opportunity in terms of the game plan on a week-to-week basis to actually see live reps. Shedeur will not get any reps with the first team or the second team in practice, because he will essentially be the third quarterback in that group. So, it's one of those deals where you just got to take advantage of your opportunity. Like JJ said, control the controllables. But one thing I want to hit on in terms of the Cleveland Browns organization, and to the previous question you asked, they're in another, this doesn't settle anything by any stretch of the imagination for them, because having 2 picks in next year's draft in the first round, that gives them ammunition to move up, as they see fit. However, you have to know what you have in quarterback this year. You have to find out at some point so you can make a decision on if you're going to take a quarterback next year. So regardless of how the season is going, at some point, Joe Flacco isn't your future. So you have to see Dillon Gabriel and or Shedeur to make that determination going forward, so you can know what you're going to do with those 2 draft picks in the first round next year.
And you still have Deshaun Watson on the roster. And we found out moments ago he's going to be on the reserve PUP list, as we expected. He's got that torn Achilles that we've heard could keep him out this entire season. JJ, what's the future for him? Not just this season, but down the road in Cleveland as they try to figure out that quarterback position.
It's very likely we've seen the last of Deshaun Watson on the field for the Cleveland Browns. It is rare to see players come back effectively from multiple Achilles tears. It's rare because it's rare that it even happens in the NFL, but it's certainly rare when it does happen that the player can come back and be any sort of semblance of the player that they were before that. And then, of course, you consider the play of Deshaun Watson the last couple of years. Yes, injury has had its impact on Deshaun. But, outside of a couple of highs, there's been a lot of lows out there on the football field, as that contract will hang over the Cleveland Browns' head for many, many years to come. So, they can't do anything with him from a transactional standpoint. They can't trade him, right? He costs so much against their cap, it doesn't make really any sense to cut him. In fact, in some ways, it hurts you. And so he's there. He will remain rehabbing. I think we've seen on social media, some videos of him coming back. I'm sure in his mind, and it should be the way that he's wired, that he is going to come back this season. It'll be the greatest comeback that we have seen in professional football history. But I don't know that anyone with the Cleveland Browns is really expecting that. And at some point, you're going to get to a point in the year where even if he can come back physically, whether it's even going to be worth it for most of the parties involved.
All right, Jonathan Jones and Rand Carthan here with us as the Browns quarterback picture finally comes together, at least for now. Flacco 1, Gabriel 2, Sanders 3. Browns opening up the season with the Cincinnati Bengals a week from Sunday. That's when our coverage begins on CBS and Paramount Plus every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time.